Over winter break, I visited Paris and saw all the historic landmarks located there. In this list, I will count down my top 5 favorite landmarks while visiting Paris. Starting off this list is the largest cemetery in Paris, but one of the least populated sites by tourists. I went on a tour which I recommend for you if you like urban legends. In fact, I learned on this tour that there was a pretty infamous ghost picture that was taken here. Overall, this is a very large cemetery with some impressive tombs, and it is definitely worth checking out, especially if you want to avoid the crowds for a little bit. Number 4 on this list is hard to miss as it sits in the middle of a large avenue in Paris. Arc de Triomphe is also the site of the New Year's Eve celebrations every year in Paris, which I would just so happen to be there when this occurred, and I didn't want to take on the crowds for their celebration, but I walked around on New Year's Eve and they had their fireworks set up, and they're also setting up the road to close down for their celebrations as well. You can also climb to the top of it, but the line was way too long to stand in for hours, and we were running on a tight time schedule. But if that is something that you're interested in doing, I would recommend doing that as well, as the views from the top are pretty good, and you can probably get some good pictures. Also, there's a tunnel that goes under the road to get to the Arc, and it is there for a reason, so don't be the person that cuts in front of traffic to get across the street. Number 3 on the list is probably one of the most iconic places for a single reason, and that is because this is where the Mona Lisa is held. I have a video that I'm going to be posting soon on how to get to the Mona Lisa the fastest and to avoid the crowds, so stay tuned for that. Now, outside of the Mona Lisa, there is plenty of other things to see. You can spend all day here. Now, outside of the Mona Lisa and all the other paintings here, there are other artifacts too. So, if paintings aren't your thing, maybe the Egyptian artifacts is something you'd be interested in, or maybe just looking around at the remnants of the old palace that this building once was. Number 2 on the list is the Notre Dame Cathedral, which at the time that I visited wasn't open because it's still under renovation after that fire in 2019. But it is still really impressive, and on the side of the walls that cover the construction site, there are a bunch of pictures of all the artifacts that they are restoring, and it's just amazing how much detail goes into these European cathedrals. I mean, the stained glass windows are impressive. You got all these sculptures, and just the massive size of these buildings just seems impossible for them to build in the early time periods that they were built. Now, it is unfortunate that I didn't get to go on the inside and see all the details that are within it, but just the side alone, there's so much detail on the outside that is cool to see it regardless. But if you get to go after the renovations are completed, take a look inside, because if it's similar to any of these other European cathedrals that I visited, it is definitely worth the time to take a look around. And at number 1 is the Eiffel Tower, which is not just one of the most iconic places in Paris, but in the world. Now, being such an iconic landmark, there are people everywhere, and this is probably one of the most crowded places in Paris. So, if you want to avoid the crowds, I would recommend doing what I did and walk down further along the river. You can get just as good of a picture down there and not have the people behind you. Also, the landscaping is a lot better when you got the river boats going by on the river rather than 100 people walking in front of your picture. Now, if you can go back to the tower at night, I would highly recommend doing so, as at night the tower twinkles at the top of every hour, which provides another spectacular show that you can watch, especially along the river with lit up riverboats going by and the reflection of the tower. It is a lot better to see it at night.